Continuing with the ongoing research, in today's video I want to speak about how it seems that in the years to come we're gonna have serious studies surrounding DMT, which at some point were banned by governments. It seems that big companies, big pharma companies, are putting their eyes on DMT and treatments regarding deep states of depression and even a stroke and some other things. That it's mainly about mental health. It's mainly about treating the cases where the traditional methods of fighting depression are not working. What I find interesting in this article that I'm going to be analyzing is that they do mention the concept of people meeting quote-unquote entities and how that is beneficial for health. So what I'm seeing here is our very objective world backed up by big pharma and by big companies, our very rational objective world of what works, of trials, of clinical trials, merging with the mysticism behind the DMT experience. Now I'm gonna be explaining a little bit about what is DMT and so on, but I'm not gonna be going into details. So I might post some links below which explain what exactly is DMT. A quick Google search will tell you what DMT is. And if you've never heard of it, I would set some time aside and go through the reports, go through the forums, because it seems that DMT research is going to be a big thing in the future, especially now that the big companies are looking into it. This is a big article, so I'm going to be fragmenting the article in different pieces. I might try this in the future videos, as I realize they are very long, so I've been trying different things, trying to find the best way to put forth this information. So feel free to go through the labels as always. And in this video, what I want to touch upon is the concept that people have on these quote-unquote machine elves, and why I find it so interesting that the objective world of big pharma and science is going into the research of these mythological, fantastical creatures that are reported in the DMT experience. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so I found this article going throughout the forums. It was posted on January 5th of 2022. This comes from Futurism. It's a little bit of a tabloid publication, and it goes into the new quote-unquote science discoveries and trends and so on and so forth. It's not very sciencey, but it's serious enough to post things of quality. Scientists are now testing medical DMT on human subjects, and this is, I remarked this, Dr. Machine Elf will see you now. This is what I said in the intro. What I find interesting is that we are seeing our scientists and our medical fields taking DMT serious now. As I said, DMT, the study of DMT has been banned for a long time by some governments, and it's a very, there's a lot of, it can be a very taboo subject. At least it used to be, but now, as I've been saying, we got, I had already made some videos about this, I believe, regarding with the Imperial College of London, where they were already doing this research in this university, and I don't know if I've actually made that video before, or I will make it on Chris Timmerman, which is one of the scientists, he's a neuroscientist who is studying this along David Nutt and some of the other people that have been speaking about this. And there is the research, and they explain how the brain, different parts of the brain activate when people are going through this experience, and they explain how the brain waves are similar to that of the REM cycle of sleep. So it ties into the whole idea of going into different brainwaves and perhaps accessing different, what people are calling quote-unquote dimensions. So I've talked about this before, but now I see this article on futurism and they add some interesting things that I want to go through. Especially this, what I was saying. So we have our very objective world scientists and medical fields going with the more mystical side of DMT research or reports or legends or mythologies of these machine elves, who are these beings that I'll go into a little bit. Alright, so it goes like this: from the dark annals of erudite forums to Joe Rogan. You know, there's that meme of Joe Rogan saying, hey, but have you tried DMT? Like, do you want to know what's real? Have you tried DMT? That's the whole thing. So just very quickly, as I said, you can go online, and I would say, if you've never heard about DMT, I would set about a couple of hours and go to the forums, go through some articles that explain what DMT actually is. But just to say it quickly, it seems to be a substance, a psychoactive drug, which is endogenous. It seems to be endogenous to Earth. It can be found in plants, it can be found in living organisms, and there are theories which suggest that it's created in the human body. You can release this substance at specific points. They talk about deep meditation, they talk about when you are in the process of dying and it's tied with the near-death experience. The hallucinogens have been known to create intense and deeply metaphysical trips akin to near-death experiences. It can bring on profound spiritual awakenings and can even result in ego death that shreds your sense of space, time, and self. So I was talking about all these things before, mystical psychosis, and how people think that they are joining the universe, and it was coined as a mental illness, but it seems that this drug actually has people going into this experience, and it's replicable. There have been serious studies before it was banned, before it became taboo. There were serious studies about this drug which are becoming relevant again as big pharma is going into this. Now, all of this sounds great in theory. If you go into this experience where you have a profound spiritual awakening and a metaphysical trip, and it says right here below also, sometimes you see freaky looking machine elves, quote unquote. Now, this is the thing that this is why it is a little bit taboo. You know, the idea was that people were tripping and they were going crazy because they start seeing beings, they start interacting with different sorts of beings or disembodied spirits. There are many ways that they are calling these quote-unquote entities, which sometimes they share information, they have this interaction. I'm gonna go into it further, but there's a lot of literature on these machine elves as well, but just to go quickly into what they seem to be. If you click that link, it'll take you to this page where it's a wiki, it's a fandom wiki. So this is what I'm saying. What I find very interesting about this article is the objective world of pharma and research with what is just is sort of to be mythology, is sort of to be just fantastic narrative elements. So there's a little picture of machine elves. When people go through these experiences, they see different things. They see, it's like a dream. It's hard to explain. It seems to be both some sort of a dream and a different dimension altogether, but I'll go into that further in the future. So some of the ways that these machine elves have been described is by Terence McKenna, which was one of the philosophers, I shall say, that started to speak about this. There's a whole bunch of entities waiting on the other side, this dimension that you go through when you have a quote-unquote breakthrough through this DMT, saying how wonderful that you're here. You come so rarely. We're so delighted to see you. He goes on to explain there are like dual self-dribbling basketballs, and there are many of them. And if there are some videos where if you Google Terence McKenna machine knowledge, there's recordings of him explaining all of this, what were his experiences with these quote-unquote machine elves, as he calls them. He goes on, what they're doing is making objects with their voices, singing structures into existence. Now, this is what I'm saying. This starts tying into the mythological elements of, it seems to, in this dimension, these machine elves tell people to create things with their voices. Now, that sounds a little bit crazy, but when you go into the literature of altered states of consciousness, this is why I often use this when speaking about ancient philosophies and these reports and the paranormal and the metaphysical things. People say, okay, you cannot fly in real life. You cannot manifest something. But can you do it in a dream? Can you do it in a different dimension? Can you do it in a different setting? This is what all the research is pointing to, that when people are accessing these different, I'm gonna go ahead and call them dimensions, they can do these things. And the theory is that on Earth we can sort of do this in a time delayed fashion. We can attract things with our thoughts. This is the idea that with our thoughts, with our consciousness, with our focus, with our intention, we can attract things just like in different dimensions, and even in our dreams, in our lucid dreams, we can literally manifest our settings. Now, it's I know this sounds very crazy. So the nearest analogy would be the Fabergé eggs, the nursery inside a UFO, celestial toys. As you know, this is a kind of craziness that we're talking about. You discover that you can pump stuff out of your mouth by singing, and they're urging you to do this. They say, that's it, keep doing it. Now, of course, when people started researching all of this, and people came back with these reports, because there are many reports of these machine elves, and I mean, this is Terence McKenna's own experience, but a lot of people have reported similar things. Sometimes these machine elves explain reality to people, and they tell them they are in control, and that they can do this. They can not only sing objects or structures with their voices, they can also, affect the very fabric of space and time. They have control over our lives. They can create all of these situations. It seems that you go into this world of the mind at large, as some people have called it, this world of the unconscious, and you interact with these entities. It goes on. The best example of this is the extremely common feeling of a living presence during sleep paralysis, which has been theorized as the origin of the succubus, as well as a common theme in many alien abduction stories. Now, I wanted to underline this, the many alien abduction stories. So the reason why people are starting to take this seriously is because some of the things that happen through this DMT experience are also happening in near-death experience, as it says on this article. It's akin to near-death experiences. There are a lot of correlations over there, and also with out-of-body experiences. And now lately, as the reports of the quote-unquote alien abductions are stacking up, even with these, some of the information shared, some of the quote-unquote downloads of information or reports or experiences, they are all leading to the same thing. There seems to be a larger reality that we are barely beginning to understand, and all of these things are pointing towards that. Now, a lot of people, when they go into this experience, they claim that these machine elves are aliens. They say that they see these quote-unquote aliens, and they try to explain to them what's going on. There's a lot of stories. I'll go into it. I've talked about this before. I talk about some of the reports of DMT and how people feel that there are these alien creatures operating on them, but in reality it seems that they are helping them somehow, getting them rid of their negative experiences, of their negative emotions. And now that ties into the research, which seems to suggest that people, after going through these experiences, they're somehow healed. There's a reset in their brains. Jack Palais has proposed that the entities met may be of an interdimensional nature in his interdimensional hypothesis. This is what people are leading into. There's these different dimensions that we can access, and our reality, our physical reality, is only one dimension that we're perhaps even coexisting with, as we are here and we can be there, and we go there when we dream, when we have these altered states of consciousness, when we die. These are called in some ancient philosophies as the bardos in Tibetan Buddhism. There are different ways and different narratives that speak about this, and now we are going into real big pharma research on this. Now, to put a little bit of the rational side on all of this, after all this craziness, okay, James Kent has put forward a different explanation for machinals. Kent postulates the DMT landscape is simply disrupting or editing our processing of visual information and causing chaotic interpretation of it. Inspired by hyperactive phosphine activity, the brain may fill in the blanks, and since we all have affinity for anthropomorphic things, a humanoid entity may appear out of all this chaos. Our imaginal workplace will take the center stage in brain activity, allowing internal data to be interpreted as external stimuli. Now, what he's basically saying is that this is a hallucination, and people are creating these patterns. They are creating these little elves because, you know, they've seen humanoids, and they create the faces, and it's their own mind telling them things, and so on and so forth. The problem is that all of the reports and all of these machinals are having the same story in thousands of reports, if not more. If you go online and you go through the research, they are saying the same thing, and this is the same thing that people are being told in near-death experiences. So either people are, as I've been saying, quote unquote, hallucinating the same thing at the same time. And I'm talking about thousands. I don't know how many are now as this is going so viral and people are sharing their experiences, and we have more near-death experiences because our medical fields have advanced so much that a lot of people are being brought back to life from the other side. A lot of people, this research is going mainstream. A lot of people are coming back with the stories, and all the stories say the same thing. We're not our bodies. There's a larger reality behind us, and there's something going on. There's a purpose for our lives. We're trying to figure out what this is. So this hallucination idea does not make a lot of sense. Now, I do agree that perhaps there's something involving this. There's this idea that the brain is some sort of an antenna, some sort of a filter where we visualize and create and render our world through our brain, and this is how we interpret it. And when we go outside our brain, we can experience different things. So some of the things that would suggest is that consciousness is not based in the brain, but somewhere else. And we're sort of just like tapping into our bodies and going through different places when we dream, when we have these altered states of mind. And when you tie the studies done by Chris Zimmerman regarding the brainwave activity when people are going to these experiences, it sort of starts tying up. We are perhaps traveling to these interdimensional hypotheses, interdimensional realities. Now, both of them might be true at the same time. It might be our brain just showing us what we know, what we can interpret. But at the same time, if the message is the same, there's a different force at hand. There's a different sort of intelligence trying to tell us the same thing, trying to explain to us what lies behind the curtain. When reflecting upon his experiences, Aldous Huxley suggested that there was something which he called mind at large, which was filtered by the ordinary functioning of the human brain to produce the ordinary experience. And yes, the theory is that when you remove this filter, you access all of that data, all of that information. Now the mind, the brain can create these faces, can create this, perhaps these geometric shapes, these elves, which tell people things, because a lot of people see these elves as different things, so perhaps it's the mind. But when you take this off, this filter off, then you might tap into something different. When you are dreaming, you sort of create faces, you create people, but sometimes you create people you've never seen. Sometimes you create environments that you are not familiar with. So where is all of that coming from? I've spoken about this before. Who are the people in your dreams? And it is very likely that when you are in that altered state of consciousness, perhaps you are tapping into some of the concepts that the literature has approached, which is the Akashic records, which mainly could be a database outside our brains, outside our cells, which is where all the information lies, and that's where we gather this information. But more on that later. Alright, so just to include a little bit this specific video, which was mainly an introduction to these mystical creatures, these machine elves, on this concept of you going outside of your brain and your consciousness being outside of your brain and your brain being some sort of antenna, some sort of filter. There is actually a very interesting theory, if anybody is interested in it. I think I've spoken about it before. I mentioned it certainly in different videos, but I really have to make a video on this theory because for me is one of the most interesting and most accurate, most researched theories on this, which is the OR, is the Penrose-Hameroff orchestrated objective reduction. It goes very deep into it. Hameroff is an anesthesiologist, and Penrose, he does studies in quantum physics, and it's very, very interesting. It has to do with the microtubules in your brain and how they go into quantum at the moment of death, and this is why people are having all these crazy ideas where they are tapping into this quote-unquote unified field of consciousness. I said I will be speaking about this in the future. I just wanted to add that because it ties with this idea of the brain being just a filter. But in any case, this video was just this introduction to machine elves, and I think what we're seeing here is that we have our very objective world of science and medical fields starting to tap, all of this is happening in the mainstream, starting to tap into the mysticism, into the taboo, into all of these ideas which we thought were mythological, were things of narratives based on real research. So people can no longer deny near-death experiences and what people are bringing back. People can no longer deny entheogens, which is why we have this big pharma starting to study. There's very interesting things in this article relating to how, the economic process and the economic interest might affect the whole thing. But I'll go, as I said, I'm going to be fragmenting this article and going into bits and pieces because I know it's a lot of information for people to take. I know that sometimes I speak fast and I go on and on and on, but I just cannot help it. And this is my way to try to shorten the videos a little bit and be more concise into what I'm trying to say. But as I said, we have this thing about near-death experiences, entheogens. We can no longer deny contact, as I've been starting to speak about the UFO phenomenon and the alien phenomenon. We can no longer deny these things. So all of these things are entering the mainstream. And what these tabloid articles are doing, what these new theories are doing, is bringing these mythological, fantastical themes into our objective world. As I said in the double slit experiment video, this is what's probably happening at the moment of this strange phenomenon of the double slit. We're bringing the non-physical into the physical. We're merging our objective world with what our current research is finding out to be not things of fantasy, but perhaps a different reality, which we are barely beginning to understand. If If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.